Okay, well, good morning. Can I get a motion to reconvene in open session? Moved by Chair Redmond, seconded by Karen Quigley Hobbs. All those in favor? We're now reconvene in open session. As we begin, we acknowledge that the land on which we gather today is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Anishinaabe, and Neutral people. We acknowledge the enduring presence of the Indigenous people with whom we share this land today, their achievements and their contributions to our community. We offer this acknowledgement as an act of reconciliation between Indigenous and non-Indigenous peoples, Canada. Moving on, declarations of pecuniary interest. Seeing none. Closed session recommendations. Don't believe there are any. Consent agenda items 7.1 to 7.5. Does anyone have any of those items they'd like to pull out as put in part of the regular program? If not, I would entertain a motion to move by Councillor Craig, seconded by Jim. Any questions, comments? All those in favor? It's passed unanimously. Business arising, there is none. Correspondence, we have Police Governance Ontario information, the Canadian Association of Police Governance, and the Inspector of Policing. There's information. Agenda items, moving on, Police Service Board reports are none. Chief of Police, oh, there we go. We start with WRPS Conestoga College Scholarship. Deputy Goodman, any opening words, Chief?
Good morning, Chair McLean, members of the board. Happy May. Pleased to once again have the annual Conestoga College Scholarship awarding. So we'll turn this over to Deputy Goodman for an overview and introduction. And I see that we're welcoming Craig Stevenson from Conestoga College. So over to you, John. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Thank you, Chair McLean. Gives me a great honor on behalf of Chief Crowell, Deputy Chief Davis, and Deputy Chief Fenton to introduce Molly Marcus, graduating of Police Foundations program at Conestoga College. There are a number of applications that came through, and we were just so overwhelmed by Molly's resume and the work that she has done over the past couple of years at Conestoga College. For the first year, she was a representative for the program, volunteering at events such as the Narcan awareness booth, fitness sessions, and program fundraisers. And then in the second year in the program, she elevated herself to student president, where she continued to coordinate events, created new initiatives for the program while maintaining a 3.9 grade point average. On top of everything that she was doing at school, she was very involved in her community. She's a reservist with the military, plays varsity rugby and U22 travel hockey. Just a great person. I know she's got some further plans that she's working through for school and life, but we hope that when she's ready, she will apply to the service. So congratulations, Molly, on winning this award. And thank you, Craig, for being here today and inviting us to the graduation ceremony a couple weeks ago.
You're more than welcome, and just our thanks from the program to the WRPS for the support that they always have given to our program and for our students. And I don't think you could have made a better choice this year than Molly. And I would like to thank her as president of the Student Engagement Committee this year. She did a tremendous job and showed tremendous leadership. So thanks to you, Molly. Congratulations. And again, thank you to the WRPS for all the support. And we look forward to continuing that relationship.
Now I'll interject and thank you, Craig, for the partnership, and thanks for the presentation, John. We welcomed Molly here this week for a photo and a presentation of the scholarship award, and there was a warning to saying we might call upon you just to provide some comments about your programming, your future. So with not too much pressure, Molly, maybe we'll just open the microphone to you, just to offer a couple words.
Yeah, so Conestoga was great. I learned a lot of practical stuff and hands-on work. I'm very honored to be chosen for this award. Like you said, there's a lot of applicants, and I know them personally, and they're great people. So I'm very honored to be here and get to be in this meeting and getting to meet you all. It was amazing. So that was awesome. Yeah, like you said, I'm in the military, and I plan to do that for a couple years while I finish my degree. And then hopefully after, I'd really love to go into policing. Seeing what all you do and is a big inspiration to me, and I thank you all for that. So thank you.
Well, thank you and congratulations. Very impressive. We'll look forward to seeing you in the intake class at some point down the road. So, thank you to Conestoga College and the partnership you have with the service as well. Any comments or questions from the board? Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting us.
Okay. 11.2 March financial variance report. First Mahan's joining us, I believe. Chief, any opening comments on this one?
Just on behalf of Deputy Fenton, happy to welcome Kirsten Hand to walk us through the next two reports. They are separate but attached. So over to Kirsten to walk us through. Thank you.
Thank you. I will just share my screen. Great. So within your package today is the Q1 2026 financial results for both the operating and the capital budget. Both are within budget year to date. So on the operating budget, we have spent 92% of the approved budget to date. For staffing costs, we are under the budget year to date, and that's due to being under authorized levels to this point in the year, some personal leaves that generated some savings, as well as cost of living being lower than budgeted to date. Staffing levels are expected to be at the expanded complement, though, just due to recruitment. I will note that overtime looks to be under budget year to date. However, this does not reflect the overtime payouts that occur twice annually, as well as hours have increased year over year by 19%. So this is being reviewed quite closely by our overtime committee. I'll just touch upon a couple of the variances. All the information is within your package. Small equipment was over budget by about $900K. That is on the expense side. So we did see higher grants, or we were able to recover for costs that we purchased on behalf of other services, as well as we did have a new client on board with ESCO. So we had one-time implementation fees. So some of those things weren't originally budgeted. So we went over on the expenses line, but that would be offset by also going over on the revenue line for no impact to the bottom line. And the other one I'll just touch upon is fees. So we're under budget year to date by $500K due to lower software maintenance, as well as communication costs, legal and consulting costs year to date. We did see some positive variances in other areas, such as services, communication costs, meetings, training and conferences, and interdepartmental charges. For revenue, we are a bit under budget for paid duty revenue. Again, that would be a similar variance on the expense side. And we are also over budget due to some higher cost recovery to other police services for expenses incurred. So this is where WRPS would purchase items or provide services to other services, and then we would bill them back for that piece. We are also collecting donations for the gala, so that has created a temporary greater than budget scenario as well. From a ministry grant perspective, we have some timing items related to our community and safety policing grant program. And we also did see some additional grant recoveries than what was originally budgeted for our hate crime extremism investigative team. And lastly, our court security and prisoner transportation grant. We did see an increase over the contract that we had with the ministry last year of $400K. So that will be a permanent positive impact to the full year budget, and $100K of that has been reflected year to date. And lastly, as I mentioned before, we did onboard a new client for ESCO. There was one-time implementation charges that were not budgeted for, so that did provide a positive variance on the revenue side. For capital, we were 15% of the budget spent to date, 39% committed. We've replaced 30 of the 68 budgeted vehicles. For information technology projects, the automated asset and evidence management solution, we have now implemented the automated equipment sign-out solution at North Division and the automated evidence locker solution at South Divisions. Both of these solutions already exist at Central. For ESCO, while no expenses have been incurred to date, we did commit to about 400K in funds related to life cycle replacement of servers and other equipment. For next generation 911, we did spend around 800K year to date. There's a slight deficit in this capital project, but I will note that this capital project is cost shared with other participating agencies, as well as we secured NG 911 grant funding from the ministry. For the technical investigation system, year-to-date spending is around 458K with an additional 658 committed. When we originally budgeted for this project, we were not aware that the vendor would be billing WRPS for the full cost of the system, and then we would charge back the participating partners. So while it looks like this project has an overage, it is fully funded from our partners. And we've also started to purchase some equipment under voice radio to support the bylaw dispatching project. For facilities, some of the major projects in 2026 include the solar panel installation on New Central Division, as well as third floor renovations. There's some infrastructure work happening to support the electric vehicle strategy. Continued security enhancements, the implementation of a UPS for both the investigative services and South Division buildings. The Public Safety Communications Center is in the design phase, and there's a number of renewal projects also included. Now, we were made aware from the region that they are now allowing budget to be transferred between capital projects on a quarterly basis, as opposed to at the end of the year when we're doing carry forwards. So based upon that information, we have received a request through regional facilities to move 180K from North Division renewal to South Division renewal of 175K, and to investigative services building renewal of 5K. All of those capital projects are fully funded by the facilities renewal reserve. So there's no issues in terms of funding, in terms of moving that budget. It just will allow them to better manage where the budget is, as opposed to where they're seeing some of the expenses incurred. So there is a motion within your package today to approve that budget capital restatement. Thank you.
The presentation, questions or comments from the board? Just one on the, excuse me, on the capital side. Those are timing, whether it's on vehicles or there was some computer equipment. That's just a function of timing of have you actually expended the money yet? But they're still planned, and it's just a timing issue, right?
Yes. Yeah, based upon the information known at this point, yes.
Okay, and on the staffing was one, and I know we've done really well on our recruitment and filling the funded, or what do we call them, the funded positions for frontline. Is that another timing issue around? Because I know we've got I think we have 4 classes this past year. Is this just the timing of when they come on board? Because I think you said we're under complement, and I think when it's a timing issue because we are recruiting 20 to 22, 24 new recruits for both retirements, but also to make sure we're keeping up the full complement as budgeted. And is that, again, more of a timing issue about when they come on stream?
Yeah. Yes. So as of May 1st, we were 1 under complement for a combined civilian/sworn, and there was 24 hires for the May intake on the sworn side.
Okay, so so a lot of this, when we're at this point in time, it becomes it's just it's a timing issue on both operations and the hiring part and on the capital side on when we're expending on some of these projects.
Yes.
And the last thing I'd say, last year I think it was like 1% or almost maybe under 1% in terms of a surplus as we at year end. Where do we anticipate this kind of, if you project out?
Yes, so we've done some internal forecasting at this point. And so we actually have a meeting tomorrow to go through that. Overtime will be a conversation. Recruitment in terms of the next 2 intakes will be a conversation to ensure that we balance within the budget to the whole year so that we essentially work within our budget. And just on the capital side as well, we are in the process of our 2027 budget process. So we're looking through every capital project and working with the stakeholders to look at where they think they're going to be at the end of this year as well. So we're undergoing a lot of work from that perspective right now as well.
The reason for my comments is to take a lot of time to go through the budget, and I'm always impressed that we get awful close to 98, 99% of what we budgeted, how we spent the money, or where we on both fronts. It's on a large budget, complex organization. It's very impressive. So I just wanted to at this stage in the year, we're still trending towards that effectively balanced budget in terms of what was approved by the board and what the service is utilizing. So thank you for that, Chair Redmond.
I'm prepared to recommendation before us about the statement of the capital expenditure as it was budgeted to go from North Division to South Division, as well as police investigative services renewal. And I guess I'm just looking, I think we sort of touched this on, we will still remain whole. It's just basically,
yeah,
it's not more. I'm happy to.
Okay, so moved by Redmond, seconded by Karen Quigley Hobbs. Any other questions, comments? All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Thank you, Kirsten, for that. And I think you're still up.
Yes. So I will share my screen again. All right, so this is our annual reserve and reserve fund update report. Just as a reminder, strategic use of reserve and reserve funds are important tools to help strengthen our long-term financial position of not just WRPS, but also the region as a whole. Primary objectives are adherence to any statutory requirements, financial stability and flexibility, provision for major capital expenditures. So this talks to the pay-as-you-go strategy, whereby we're looking to utilize reserves for funding of current assets as opposed to things like debt, ensuring that we have sufficient reserves for unfunded liabilities, reducing the need for tax levy funded debentures. I will note on that perspective that no debt has been issued for WRPS property tax levy debt has been issued for WRPS in 2024 nor in 2025. We are in conversations with regional finance about their potential spring debt issuance, and at this point we've identified no debt required for that as well. And just the last reminder is that we do have a policy in regards to how we manage our reserves, which is consistent with the region's policy and strategy. So we're aligned on that front. Great. So there are a number of reserves and reserve funds that we have. So the first one is the Regional Development Charges Reserve. This is managed through the region, and they're actually doing a review at this point to look at the adequacy of that reserve in terms of how much money is in it, how fast do we think we're going to collect on expected regional development charges as a comparison to what does the capital forecast out in terms of capital expenditures funded through the Regional Development Charge Reserve. So more information will come from the region's review from that perspective. WSIB Reserve Fund, the target is the liability value. That's the same for the next three reserves. That is determined through an actuarial study. which is also utilized for the audited financial year-end results. So as you note there, we do have a gap. We have had a gap for a number of years. We have increased our contributions from the operating budget to help mitigate that gap. For a sick leave reserve, again, we did see a slight increase in that liability from the prior year. And we continue to have a gap on that one as well. As a result, we did start contributing towards a reserve through the operating budget of about $250K a year. We did up that to $500K a year for the 2026 operating budget. And similarly for the employee post-retirement benefits reserve, that liability keeps increasing every year. Again, we are contributing towards it through the operating budget, and I'll talk a little bit more about this later on. There's a motion in relation to this reserve, but right now in the 2026 operating budget, we are contributing $500K a year. So we did up those contributions to those reserves in the 2026 budget. The general reserve is a contingency reserve, so it's basically there for a rainy day in case we incur a deficit, in case there's unanticipated expenses. The target is $2 million. We are above that target. So there are some motions that we'll talk to a little bit later on in terms of where should that surplus be allocated. The benefits claim stabilization reserve, when we talked about our 2025 actuals, I had noted at that point that there was a surplus through Sun Life. That surplus then went to this reserve. And so we are again over target, and I'll talk a bit later about a recommendation as to what to do with that information. The Technical Investigations Cooperative Reserve, that's just money that we get from our participating partners, and it would go towards the replacement upgrade of that system. The ESCO reserve right now is a contingency reserve, so it can be utilized, and this is a newer reserve that was created. There is a policy that has been created that was approved by the ESCO Management Committee. It's a contingency reserve that's essentially for unanticipated expenses, potential deficit, capital expenditures. This policy is going to be, there's going to be a recommendation to the Management Committee through the 2027 budget process to look at splitting this reserve into a contingency reserve and a separate capital reserve, so we can continue to implement some of the strategies we have done from WRPS as a whole in relation to ESCO to ensure that they have a stable ongoing reserve to fund their capital expenditures. And the Voice Radio Reserve, the targets determined from the Governance Committee. That relates to the voice radio system that WRPS leads on behalf of the region. And they are above target, but there's some plans to utilize some of that money towards security enhancement at voice radio sites, as well as to smooth out any future per radio charges that occur to partners. These are asset replacement reserves for WRPS. There are some recommended increases to those reserves based upon our current 10-year capital forecast, and assuming some of the motions that we'll talk a bit about later on to ensure that we can continue to fund our capital projects, our vehicles, and our life cycle renewal throughout the next 5 years at a minimum, but most of them right now, we're looking at longer horizons. I will still note that we do have some capital projects that really should be reserve funded, but are not, just because they're larger projects. And that typically is, for instance, our capital project 50011, which is voice radio and user gear replacement. There's some large ESCO and some large information technology projects into the future. So we continue with that strategy to look at having a strategy so that we can utilize reserves to fund some of those capital projects, as opposed to like a property tax levy, or sorry, property tax debentures. So that takes me to some of the motions that are within the report. So the first one is just a standard motion that has been included in the report, is that the board approve the revised target reserve and reserve contribution imbalances as set out in the report. The second piece relates to the voice radio system. So there is a memorandum of understanding amongst all participating agencies of the voice radio system. One of the clauses within it talks to the eventual replacement of the voice radio system. And it talks to that system will be replaced and that shall be funded by the region. So we've had conversations with the region. WRPS represents approximately 40% of the voice radio system. So there was discussions around putting money away now to prepare for the eventual replacement of that system. We did include an $800K contribution to this reserve through our 2026 operating budget on the WRPS side. And so we're formally asking the board for approval to set up that reserve to put that money into, again, put money away towards that eventual radio system replacement. Motion number 3 relates to the fact that we were over target on the general reserve by 3.2 million. We are recommending that 300K go to the vehicle reserve and 2.9 million go to the capital reserve. And I'll just talk quickly on why so much to the capital reserve. So as I mentioned, we haven't issued debt 2024, 2025. And when we had the conversations with regional finance about the spring debt issuance, we had 2 capital projects last year that were assumed to be funded by regional development charges and property tax debentures. And that was approximately 300K for the PSCC and approximately $1 million for the Central Division 3rd floor renovation project. If we transfer this money to the capital reserves, we could fund the property tax debenture portion of that expenditures that are currently sitting as unfunded from our reserve. And we could continue with that strategy of not issuing debt. So that's partly why I'm asking for that money to go to that reserve, as well as setting us up more successful to ensure that we can fund capital projects from that reserve till 2033. And the last motion, number 4, is that, as I mentioned, that the benefit claim stabilization reserve is above target. So there is a recommendation to move $3.5 million, that surplus amount, to the employee post-retirement benefits reserve to further try to close that gap on that liability versus reserve balance. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm going to ask the board, I guess one of our microphones is on the fritz, so we're going to have to use our outside voices inside to make sure that the rest of you can hear. So give us a thumbs up. Is this better? That's better. I'm just using my McLean voice, inside voice to, everyone else will have to channel theirs as well. Questions, comments from the board? Karen?
I just think this is a very prudent approach and really appreciate all the work that went into this. And if somebody else wants to read, but I would.
Okay, moved by Chair Redmond, seconded by Jim. I had one question, just and it's more to refresh my memory on the 3 where we have significant deficits. One is WSIB, then there's the benefits. They seem like big numbers, and they are. Just kind of a quick overview of the plan to help fund them. I don't think we anticipate getting to those numbers of, say, 62 million anytime in the foreseeable future. Again, it's almost an audit or an actuarial thing of, if you had to pay out everything at one time, that's what you would pay. There is no scenario in which that ever happens, but you still have to have an adequate reserve for the ups and downs in those. So maybe talk about the specific ones if you want, but on those ones where that we have a plan, that it's a prudent, we go through audit and internal reviews to make sure that we're making progress on those. But I wouldn't want anyone to be the impression that we've got a huge deficit or a gap that is with expenditures being unmet because we don't have the cash. So maybe just kind of remind the board and those listening how to make sense of those.
Yeah, so it does represent the current value of liabilities going into the future for current employees. We do note in the report, in order to fully fund it, how much money we would have to put away a year. And just for example, the post-employment benefits would be 18 million, and that's just not, we wouldn't be able to add that to our budget in order to manage that. So it's basically a balancing act. We have over time, first of all, we've created reserves. So that's a bonus. Second of all, we started to contribute towards those reserves, and we've increased that to every year for each one of those three. And then the third piece is where we find opportunities like the benefit claim stabilization reserve. Can we move money into those reserves? So it's a bit of a balancing act. We are contributing towards them, but in order to fully fund them, it just wouldn't be sustainable from an operating budget increase.
And this is definitely it's a prudent approach that many boards, organizations would use. So it's always a bit jarring to see that big gap, but there is a plan, and it's got to be seen in context. Okay, that was my only question. Any other questions from the board? Thank you for the reports. Moved and seconded. All those in favor? That's passed unanimously. Thank you, Kirsten. Appreciate that. Moving on, 11.4, use of force Q1 report. Superintendent Houston and Hassan, you're joining us. Who's starting us off on this?
Thanks, Chair McLean. So yeah, happy to introduce Superintendent Beth Houston, who helps to lead our organizational culture and professional development division, and Hassan Siddiqui from our strategic services team. So I'll turn it over to Beth for our use of force presentation to start. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Chief. Good morning, Chair McLean and members of the board. We're very pleased to be with you this morning to present on our Q1 2026 use of force statistics. So we go to the first slide. The current presentation covers data provided from use of force reports submitted from January 1st to March 31st of 2026. So in this presentation, we will talk about both reportable incidents and use of force reports. A reportable incident refers to those incidents which require a use of force report by legislation and or WRPS procedure. A single reportable incident may generate several use of force reports, one for each officer. And as a reminder, each use of force report is subject to 3 different layers of scrutiny. First, by the staff sergeant of the platoon or unit, next by the senior leader of the unit, branch, or division, and then finally by a practical skills sergeant in training and education. In Q1, there were 48,170 CAT occurrences, which resulted in 4,106 arrests. There were 132 use of force incidents in Q1, and this is an increase from the previous quarter where there were 96 use of force incidents. Likewise, there were also more modernized use of force reports in Q1 as compared to Q4 of 2025. Overall, in Q1, the proportion of police interactions involving force was 0.3%. In Q1, relative to Q4 last year, we observed an increase in the number of incidents where officers had to either draw or point their handgun or rifle. And in terms of CEW usage, overall, the number of incidents involving a CEW remained relatively stable relative to the previous quarter. And I'll pass it over to Dr. Siddiqui.
Thank you, Superintendent. So when we're looking at racial disproportion, we see that Black individuals were overrepresented in Q1 use of force incidents by a factor of 2.83 relative to the population. Middle Eastern individuals were overrepresented in Q1 use of force incidents by a factor of 2.87 relative to the population. And white individuals continue to be the most represented group in use of force incidents. To assess racial disparity, the representation of racialized groups is compared to the representation of white individuals as a benchmark, as recommended by the Anti-Racism Data Standards. We see no evidence of racial disparity in Q1 use of force incidents. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Okay, thank you for the report. It was interesting to see questions from the board. I may have asked this before, because again, it comes up. 0.3% of all, when you start with whatever it was, 418,000, 0.3% end up having a use of force. So we not only collect that to compare ourselves quarterly and on an annual basis. How does that compare with like other services? Does it matter the size of other services, like Toronto versus Sarnia as an example, or like how do we put ourselves, do we measure ourselves against other services and on that metrics?
I don't mind starting that one. Part of the benefit of the network of police organizations and leaders across the province being connected is, being connected through the Ontario Association of Chiefs of Police, the Education and Training and Professional Development Committee. We're often sharing our best practices and approaches. So from an anecdotal perspective, I know that other police organizations are reporting similar outputs in terms of their total community engagements, and then the calculations for the use and force encounters. But I can draw upon Mandy Williams or Hassan, who can also speak to the tracking that's being done provincially for the use of force reports. And the board will remember that we've used the term modernized use of force reporting because there's been an evolution over the past couple of years. So Mandy, just to point to exactly where we are from a comparative perspective, that's actually being tracked and even discussed about some enhanced reporting. So over to you, Mandy.
Yes, thank you, Chief. And good morning, members of the board. Yeah, so it's important to note that the number in terms of comparison, it's important to note that the purpose of the form is to make sure that every force deployment is reasonable and appropriate. And so comparing to other police services doesn't always make sense, but we always want to keep an eye line on it. At the provincial level, the numbers for all Ontario police services are reported through the Minister of the Solicitor General, and it is open data, so anyone can go in there. Provincially, we're looking at a 0.2 proportion of all calls end up in a use of force incident, and so WRPS is trending along those lines. They're always reviewing the questions that we're reporting against, or the information that we're providing on the use of force report to make sure that they're able to review the incidents for reasonableness. And currently, the Minister of the Solicitor General is reviewing those right now, and WRPS has provided feedback on some additional fields that would be useful for evaluating our use of force deployments.
Perfect. Thank you for that. Very helpful. I don't think there's any other questions. There's no motion here. So thank you for taking us through that today. And we'll move on to intelligence notes. Is this Hassan again?
Yeah, Hassan will carry through with this one and even into the next one as well. So he's well featured today. So over to you, Hassan.
You are stuck with me.
Yeah.
As unfortunate as it is for you. I jumped in the middle last time, so I did not get to say good morning. So good morning, Chair McLean and members of the board. It is always a pleasure to present to you. Although I don't know if it's as much of a pleasure to listen to me. So we'll jump on in. So as a reminder, all intelligence notes are created at an officer's discretion. Intelligence notes are used to document persons and/or activities for investigative purposes. Identifying information in an intelligence note can be collected where no interaction takes place, so like a passive observation, where the identifying information is derived from a third-party source or already known to the officer, or where the interaction with the person was first lawful. The report presents intelligence notes entered between January 1st and March 31st, 2026. So in 2025, there were 934 intelligence notes created, which averages to roughly 234 notes per quarter. In the first quarter of 2026, 198 intelligence notes were created. A single occurrence can result in multiple intelligence notes. Of the 198 intelligence notes created, 88 focused on individuals, a further 88 focused on locations, and 22 were created about unoccupied vehicles. When officers create an intelligence note, they're asked to identify the rationale for documenting information. A single intelligence note can have multiple rationales, so the numbers will sum to greater than 198. Intelligence notes were most often created to document associations between people, places, and vehicles, followed by documenting information related to drugs or drug trafficking. The race and identity-based data analytics strategy will focus only on the 88 intelligence notes that focused on person subjects. This graph here illustrates the value of enforcement action benchmarking to help identify the flags with respect to which rationales specifically are implicated in racial overrepresentation. As compared to white counterparts, Black individuals were overrepresented in intelligence notes created in relation to firearms, fraud, and gangs, while Middle Eastern individuals were overrepresented in intelligence notes created in relation to firearms. Using these flags to drive our investigation, we can triangulate this pattern against other types of information, both within and external to WRPS, to gain a better understanding of why we might see the overrepresentation of select groups in particular categories. In summary, intelligence notes were most frequently created to document associations and information related to drugs or drug trafficking. Replicating previous patterns, Black and Middle Eastern individuals were overrepresented in specific rationales, here specifically firearms, fraud, and gangs. As part of our ongoing work in analyzing data related to intelligence gathering, we are working with our intelligence branch to better understand the impact of intelligence notes throughout the organization. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, happy to take them.
Thank you for that. Questions, comments? Thank you for your reports today, and I think you're not done yet. You're the next one too.
Thanks, Chair McLean. So just as we move to the last report of the day, we'll be doing a community safety and wellbeing plan feature. I believe that Inspector Aaron Mathias is joining us. There he is. So we'll turn it over to this team to provide a short presentation. Thanks very much.
Well, good morning, Chief, Chair, and members of the board. Very pleased to join you this morning and provide a brief update to a report that was presented in August of last year, which helps us to better understand elevated rates of intimate partner violence related victimization in municipalities, including our own, that have gender-based violence hub service delivery models for survivors versus those without. And also a brief analysis on the social return on investment produced by our early intervention program, really to demonstrate linkages between reporting and increased opportunities for intervention. And as been noted a few times, very pleased to be joined by Dr. Hassan Siddiqui to walk us through the more technical aspects of this analysis. I'll get you to move to the next slide, please. Thanks so much. As we know, IPV, GBV, and missing and murdered Indigenous women and girls were declared an epidemic by the region and municipalities in 2023. And our partners at the Family Violence Project are really the cornerstone of the region's action table to addressing these issues. The basis of this report was driven really by two factors. We wanted to refine the previous version, which originally analyzed rates of victimization that were based on census metropolitan areas. This unfortunately did not accurately reflect the reach of the GBV hubs in those municipalities. And secondly, to continue to solidify the business case of the Family Violence Project hub service delivery model to the Government of Ontario. Advocacy that was conducted at the Rural Ontario Municipal Association delegation in January alongside regional and municipal leadership led to a site visit in April from the Assistant Deputy Minister of MCCSS and senior Ontario Public Service staff. This really gave our partners an opportunity to showcase industry-leading work that the FVP does each and every day, and also to make a case for investment, and really reinforces the importance of the Community Safety Wellbeing Plan and demonstrated successes that we've had through the Connected Government Relations Table. So I'll pass now to Dr. Hassan Siddiqui to walk through some of the data components of his analysis on those municipal hub models. Over to you, Hassan. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Inspector. So in 2025, the WRPS responded to 6,468 IPV-related calls. Overall, the number of IPV-related calls that WRPS has responded to has remained relatively consistent year over year. For a variety of systemic and individual reasons, IPV is historically underreported to police. This represents an initial barrier for police services to provide wraparound support to victims of intimate partner violence. One of the systemic factors that contributes to underreporting is a lack of coordination between police services and other supports. Hub-based service models, therefore, provide, like the Family Violence Project in our region, provide a solution to this concern. As such, what we would expect is that regions with hub-based models would be associated with greater IPV reporting. So we tested this using an analysis of a variance analytical model and found that in regions with hub-based service models, there was greater IPV reporting, suggesting that hub-based models like the Family Violence Project are helping to overcome that initial barrier to effective response, which is IPV underreporting. Now that we see evidence of greater reporting, we want to next assess whether we are seeing positive outcomes once people do report. One method to assess this is calculating the social return on investment. In 2025, 440 repeat IPV victims were registered for the early intervention program. When examining these individuals 6 months post-registration, we found that 51% had no further police contact and 81% had fewer police contacts. We can assess the social return on investment of reducing violations as a result of being registered in the early intervention program. We use the estimation of economic impact of spousal violence in Canada methodology. This methodology looks at the economic costs of IPV on the victim, on the justice system, the healthcare system, as well as some potential third-party costs. We found that in 2025, the early intervention program had a social return on investment of over $585,000. Thank you so much. If you have any questions, we'd be happy to take them.
Okay, question, Karen Quigley-Hobbs.
Thanks very much for the report. This may not even have an answer, but just recognizing this is a bit of a relentless and stubborn level of or numbers that we see on a year-over-year basis. And I'm wondering if there's any hypotheses, for lack of a better word, as to what contributes to this maintaining fairly high numbers in IVP report.
I'll start, and there's bright people that might chime in because I'm proud of the leadership that not only our region and the collective communities have taken, but also Deputy Chief Jen Davis and her teams, Aaron Matthias leading the Family Violence Project, and then all of our related analysis teams. One thing I would say, despite we've shown the case today to show there's actually the increase of reporting and collaborative support to come through a hub model. But if you actually look at the growth of Waterloo region over the past, say, 5 years or 10 years, we've actually seen, the high number of IPV cases relatively stabilize around the 6,000 to 6,400 mark on average of the past number of years, which says that it's not an infinitely growing, issue. And not only is it stabilizing, but with every person who comes through the door of a hub model, not only is there a police and criminal justice component, but it's the wraparound supports that matter the most for positive interventions and hopefully getting to that preventative and healthy space. So to your question, Ms. Quigley-Hobbs, if we had the answers, we certainly are looking to implement them. But I would just recognize that we in this region are continuing to do leading work. I know that Chair Redmond has joined Deputy Davis, Inspector Matthias, and others as a tour of the Family Violence Project model that has now been in place for 20 years. And we want to continue to have investments in this community to provide supports to victims, survivors, and families alike. So that work of advocacy is ongoing. We know the board shares that perspective too. And it's only through partnership and only through those collaborative evidence-based solutions are we going to reverse any of the tides that we're facing. So I don't know if Deputy Davis or Inspector Matthias have any further insights, or even Chair Redmond was present recently at that tour at a ministry level of looking at resource support.
Won't see anyone weighing in. Chair Redmond?
If I can just pick up and echo some of the words of the chief, I would have to say it was a really interesting work. 20 years of perfecting this model has gone a long way of allowing people, clients and victims to come forward and to tell their story. The genesis was advocacy, what we were doing at FOMA, which was the Rural Ontario Municipalities Association. So we went there and they were interested enough that they came to see our model. When we talk about wraparound services, what was illustrated when we went to the receiver at the co-location of the services with the social services, the broad spectrum that community offers is person go into open and tell their story. And then as other supports are needed, those supports come into that room. So they don't have to take a bus across town. They don't have to go and retell their story to somebody else. And when somebody comes in, there's evidence that there has been abuse, but they are not ready to report it. That is kept on file. See with all the parameters that need to be for personal
Privacy.
it's privacy. Thank you. And they can come back in 2 or 3 years and say, I am now ready to report, and they do not have to relive all of that. It is there. So in so many ways, this is very much a best practice. The reality is we could not do this. WRPS could not do this. Community could not do this with all these community partners. So it really is probably one of the best practices. And I know the AD women heard teachings about, be very impressed. And we did present a business case on why we need more funding, because there is no doubt that more funding will go a long way to service.
Would you have a question? Or would you?
No, that's what I wanted.
That's okay, perfect. Tony.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I have two questions. I don't, in all fairness to the two doctors, Dr. Williams and Dr. Siddiqui, when we look at the IPVs that are reported versus non-reported, it seems to be more of an art. Do we have a sense, or do you have a sense of how much more reporting is being done around intimate partner violence versus, 10 years ago or 20 years ago? Is there, it feels like there is, but is there any more substance that either one of you can add to that?
Mandy, you ready?
Yeah, through you, Chief. Yeah, so I can dig out the link. There was recently a Statistics Canada publication on intimate partner violence and reporting rates, and it has increased, single digits increased over the past few years, whatever the reporting period is. Can't remember off the top of my head, but I'm very happy to forward the link on in the summary. I provided a summary to the chief, and I can forward that up the chain.
Yeah, I appreciate that. My second question is around the social return of investment. Kind of a finance guy, I always like return of investment, but I like the social return of investment. Does that incorporate the multi-generational impacts of the services and the support services we're providing? So, if you get what my question's about.
Through your chief, yes. So there is room within that economic assessment of the multi-generational impact. So, for example, I mentioned third-party costs. Some of those third-party costs may include time that is taken when children are pulled from school as a result of this problem at home being resolved. It can also include if somebody needs to take off work to then support, say, a child that is going through this issue. Those are included within that. So there is some room for the multi-generational economic impact
Yeah, and I'm also
within the methodology we used.
Yeah, I'm also thinking about the psychological, emotional, and mental burdens that those children would face later in life, and the social services provided, et cetera. So early intervention really helps along the lines there. So but I think you're saying that's all incorporated to some degree in this, right?
Absolutely. So within the healthcare costs include
Yeah.
mental health and other supports for all members of the family, not just the victim in question.
Deputy Davis, and then I think Mandy had her hand up too.
Thank you. Through you, Chair. I was just going to add in answer to that question, Tony, early intervention and education with our high school aged youth has been a huge part of early intervention. So in partnership with Victim Services and partnership with Women's Crisis, we have investigators that are actually going into the school systems and providing education on healthy relationships, what is coercive control, etc. to try and teach kids at a younger age about healthy relationships, about how to report when they're seeing intimate partner violence, maybe among their friends or in their home. So that is a huge piece about trying to get to our youth at a younger age, even around this topic.
Hey, Mandy?
Yes, thank you. And I just wanted to acknowledge the good work of Inspector Matthias in the area of adverse childhood experiences, where we know exposure to violence in the home is one of the main predictor of, poor life outcomes. And so I don't know if he has more to say, but I know he has a portfolio of work in the area.
Thanks, Mandy. I was looking for the button to raise my hand. Appreciate the opportunity. And then first, I think I'll highlight the work of our a great partner at FVP is the Child Witness Center, which is embedded in our continuum of care and really addresses those adverse childhood experiences from the gender-based violence and intimate partner violence level for those young folks that are either going through the court process or have been a witness to violence. And we know that in terms of the adverse childhood experiences scale, intimate partner violence rates being a witness of or involved in rates very highly on the scale of adverse childhood experiences. So that is something that as a service, we've undertaken a partnership with public health to develop training for our officers to reinforce the importance of these preventative aspects. And we look forward to that training module being available towards the end of the year for our officers and also hopefully to information share with our law enforcement partners.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Thank you for important update on a critical issue, so appreciate that. I don't think there's any more for Hassan to do. He's done his last three. We'll give him a break now. Chief, I think it's over to you for the monthly chief's report. Yes.
Thanks, Chair McLean and members of the board. It's an honor to provide the monthly Chief of Police report looking back April into May. So it's been a very busy month, and I'm going to highlight a number of snapshots about our approach to emergency response and criminal interventions of many kinds. So we had a very successful drug and firearms investigation that started in March and led to the execution of a search warrant in Kitchener that led to the discovery of drug trafficking evidence as well as a firearm. Ultimately, a 32-year-old male was arrested and charged with multiple offenses. Similarly, we responded to the report of a robbery at a drive-through restaurant in Waterloo, and the attempted theft of a vehicle using a firearm was thwarted. And ultimately, we made an arrest in this occurrence with the discovery of a replica firearm, and a 36-year-old male was arrested. We had conducted a search warrant in the city of Cambridge, and we located several weapons, including prohibited weapons, knives, brass knuckles, and replica firearms as well, leading to the charge of a 20-year-old male and a 17-year-old male from Cambridge charged with numerous offenses. These incidents just to show the proliferation of firearms, both real and replica, throughout the course of our duties. And also similarly, changing gears, we had a very successful retail crime blitz that occurred throughout the investigations of February and March that led to 75 charges being laid in coordination not only with our South Division DART Direct Action Response Team, but also a number of businesses and loss prevention teams throughout Cambridge. And we learned a lot through this investigation where we had not only the charges laid, but criminal offenses related to repeat offenders, and also the discovery of some organized retail crime from people from outside of our region attending Waterloo region for retail crime investigations. So this is a keen area of focus for many of our investigative teams going forward to disrupt the very costly response to retail crime. We had a shooting incident just over the weekend in Uptown Waterloo where an 18-year-old male sustained a gunshot wound. This is the second shooting incident of 2026, and that investigation is continuing with our General Investigations Unit. In the early morning hours this evening, we had the third shooting incident in the city of Waterloo as well, where an armored car was intervened by 4 suspects. So that investigation is unfolding right now, and we will be providing media availability by midday today. Lastly, looking at some very keen investigative work connected by our break, enter, and auto theft and robbery team, in coordination with other investigative units, the discovery of a vehicle chop shot. This is the network of investigations related to vehicle thefts and the affiliated investigative components as well. Within the city of Cambridge on Eagle Street, we located the salvage of many vehicle parts and 18 stolen motor vehicles that were recovered and stripped for parts. So this is part of an ongoing organized crime investigation and one of many taking place across Ontario. Ending the updates on a good note, we had a very happy recovery of the ceremonial gong that was stolen from the Waterloo Region Health Network at Midtown Hospital. And within a couple days of reporting and investigation, we're able to return this very important community item to REN and the celebration of the cancer care treatment that is provided to this community. So it was a happy occasion for us to support and to connect with their healthcare partners and those survivors being connected to that center. In terms of road safety, you can see displayed the number of road safety charges as the weather improves. We continue to be focused on the fatal 4 offenses through our proactive driving investigations. And just to give you a sense of some of the driving behavior, we had a successful traffic enforcement intervention where we stopped somebody who was traveling 142 kilometers in a 60-mile or kilometer-an-hour zone. And ultimately, a 26-year-old driver was charged with stunt driving, speeding, and careless driving, and facing a license suspension for 14-day vehicle impoundment. So those efforts will continue. Very happily, we welcomed 16 new officers in Wellesley Township Community Center just at the turn of the month. And we also welcomed a new cadre of auxiliary officers, 19 members who were welcomed to the team on April 15th as well. So very pleased to have those new members join our organization. And in closing, we are very proud to have hosted the WRPS Open House as we celebrate Police Week, and protecting Ontario through service is the theme this year. So we welcome thousands of residents and many partners and volunteers to celebrate and to share and to engage at our headquarters facility. And fun was had by all, and it was a record-setting event in terms of total attendance. So as the warm months continue, we will remain engaged. May and June are on our calendar, the busiest months of the year. So we look forward to all of our teams and members being engaged across the communities in engagement, celebration, and sharing. So thank you very much. That is the Chief of Police report for April into May.
Great. Thank you, Chief. Tony, had a comment?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. On Saturday, I was very excited to be able to attend the open house. I could tell you and reaffirm what you just said, Chief, that it was well attended.
Yeah.
A lot of people, ages right across the gambit. It was good to see a lot of badging ceremonies going on there. No, they were the sticker kind, but still badging ceremonies. You know what? It was very enlightening, I found, enjoyable, and it seemed like the community was well engaged. You know, I just personally want to thank the chief and the deputies for ensuring that there was some sunlight that day and not a lot of rain. And but also more importantly, the WRPS staff and our community partners that were there providing this interactive session for the members of our community. I thought it was well done, well executed, and kudos to you and the entire team. And as I said, our community partners, well attended event. Thank you.
Yeah, it was great, and the weather was great. So I don't know who brought that because it wasn't good in the afternoon, but it was good in the morning. Karen.
So last evening, representing the board, Karen Quigley-Hobbs, Doug Craig and I were able to attend the WRPS annual awards. And it was incredibly inspirational. It was inspirational to hear the brave that some citizens had put themselves in harm's way to protect other people, but also the daily acts of bravery that are happening by WRPS staff. And also the innovation of some of our non-uniform staff in making sure that we're on the cutting edge as we go forward and into new areas. The new 911 process, or how we would do with the staff in a better way. So I was very inspired. I don't know if we each one had your voice spoke with the.
Well, I think there were a number of awards given out, but the highlights were we had 5 young children
Yes.
on stage, about that tall, 6 years old.
Yeah.
Who were part of what a successful operation in the whole way. And I think highlighting youngsters and officers, the officer who was on the news about dealing with an individual with a hatchet in the middle of an intersection was there. And I think these people really, really deserve what was happening in terms of being recognized. And finally, there was 30 members of the force and staff on stage for the robbery, the cash and grab thing at Cambridge Mall.
The whole team was there.
And the stage was kind of shaking a bit. But, then there was also Chair McLean's introductory speech, but I won't talk about it.
Just giving me the gears again.
But it was a great ceremony. It's always well done in terms of its organization, how it highlights community and the service. Really well done.
I would say just on Saturday, and all these things connect, the youth that you talked about that are performed bravely. There was lots of kids here on Saturday, Tony and I, and everyone wanted to meet the chief and the deputies, but they were more impressed and wanting to know when the dogs were arriving. That was the big question, is when the dogs were arriving at 11 o'clock. But there was a group of women in policing mentorship program. They were all wearing the blue t-shirts. And two of them proudly told the chief, said, you know, we just got hired. They've been through the process. And so I think they're actually, chief, going to be part of the next intake at the police college. So, you know, doing the community stuff begets people wanting to be in policing, which is important. So connecting those two pieces together. Anything else for the chief? If not, thanks everyone for another great meeting. New business, I don't think we have any. Future agenda items, anything? Oh. Information items, just for members of the media, we're welcome to log into the Zoom with login credentials that were provided, where Chief Carl and myself will be available to take questions from the media as soon as we're done here. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn by Tony, seconded by Jim. All those in favor?